Okay, everyone, thank you very much for being here. Welcome. And in this video, we're going to talk about the psychology of sales, leadership, and influence. So I've heard people like Tony Robbins say that he thinks influence is the most important quality for entrepreneurs to develop. You know, the most important quality. So start to think about influence in your life, and I want to help you in this video. We're going to help you to get in touch with the psychology of influence, sales, and leadership so that you can use them in your business. Michelle, is there anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think when we think about the psychology of sales and leadership, one of the key psychological concepts that we need to contemplate and understand is the psychology of authority. And this concept of authority. I've talked about authority in other videos, but specifically when it comes to sales, understanding that you are an authority on the topic of the program that you're creating and the program that you're selling. And many of us, especially independent spiritual seekers, have issues with authority, have issues with authority itself, which is going to translate into issues being an authority and having a right relationship with authority. So I really want to encourage you guys. This is such a critical piece of self-examination and inner work that must be done if you want to really stand out as a leader and to stand out as somebody that's able to successfully hold and navigate people through a successful sales process. You have to be comfortable being an authority and being okay prescribing action steps to an individual. And knowing that you can do this from a place of love, of integrity, of deep respect and honor for yourself and for the other person, right? And so I want you to really think about where in your life did you maybe experience abuse of authority, or where somebody in authority maybe didn't use that authority in the best way to you. Because when we have that sort of that trauma or that negative experience, it paints a filter over us that blocks us from being able to correctly navigate our own position as an authority. And you're going to continue to have issues on sales calls until you successfully resolve this within yourself. It's of the utmost importance. And for example, how do you view authority figures in our society? How do you view police officers? How do you view governmental officials? How do you, right? I'm not saying that all authority is right authority and that there isn't, political points aside, a significant amount of upgrading and updating that our society needs to do around its relationship to authority. But that starts with you. That starts with you as an individual deeply shifting and psychologically correcting these things within yourself. And you're going to get a deep understanding and a deep wisdom of what right authority feels like within you. And part of that on a day-to-day basis is really listening to the authority within yourself. What is the authority within you telling you to do, right? Maybe it's to work on your business, but maybe you've been avoiding doing that, right? So part of healing our relationship to authority and then being able to be an authority to other people effectively and with integrity is being able to surrender to right and appropriate authority when it presents itself to us, right? So that's the first step to healing it, is surrendering to right and appropriate authority, the authority of the divine within you. And then also giving yourself permission to cultivate the energy and the psychological attitude that you are an authority on the topic at hand, that you know more than others because of the experiences that you've been brought through. They've perfectly cultivated you to be an authority. The experiences you've had are enough to make you an authority on this topic. It's not about certifications. It's not about looking at outside sources to gift you that. Although, if you have trainings and you have certifications, there's nothing wrong with that. right? I'm not trying to invalidate the work that you've done or the work that you put in the certifications. But we cannot find, very often what people are doing when they seek out certifications is they're looking to receive that sense of authority or that attitude, psychological attitude of authority. But that's really only going to be deeply resolved once you do this track of inner work yourself. And that's really independent of trainings and certifications, right? So again, this psychological piece of authority is extremely important. It's extremely important. And again, just discerning what meaning do I place on authority? What knee-jerk reactions do I automatically have when I see authority figures in our society and in our world, right? Because that lens and that filter is information. It's information that colors the experiences that you have, colors the experiences that you will create for yourself. And it's a really important part of being a leader, is having a right relationship to authority.
And just to expand on that, let's expand that to power as well, and masculinity, right? Being in touch with your masculine and being in touch with your power and also authority are three things that are really important, for sales and leadership. And so when you think about someone who has power or authority, do you feel some kind of appreciation for them? Do you feel a respect? Is there an admiration? Do you kind of admire this person? Because if you do, it'll be easy for you to become like them. But if you kind of put people who are like powerful or masculine or an authority in some kind of like lower degrading box, look, you're not going to be able to develop those qualities for yourself. You're always going to be pushing out your own masculine side, your own powerful side. You kind of have a thought, masculine side is bad, men are bad, power is bad, wealth, in particular wealth, because this whole program is about wealth is bad, right? If you don't admire and respect wealth in the world, how are you ever going to develop it? Same with power, authority, and masculinity. Okay, so homework assignment for you is to start to admire and appreciate these qualities of power, authority, leadership, masculinity, sales, affluence, that kind of thing. Start to admire and respect wealth, people who are really good at what they do. Start to admire and respect people who have these qualities, and your mind will become open, and you'll start to be able to learn to develop these yourself. And this is a good training for you, because you'll notice, as you do this, you'll notice if the opposite is true. You'll notice if you start to kind of put them down, that in that moment, it's a sign that you will not be able to develop that quality for yourself. You're always going to be separate from power, wealth, leadership, sales ability, masculinity. You'll always be separate from those, and you'll never have it if you can't honor and appreciate it within other people.
Yeah, and right, if you look at these individuals and maybe you make knee-jerk subconscious assumptions, maybe you look at people that are really masculine, powerful, wealthy, and you say they must be abusers, right? I think this is like a common attitude. Well, they must have some things under the covers that they haven't dealt with, right? They might not, but it is certainly data about the imprints energetically and psychologically that you are holding around power, authority, and masculinity.
You have to learn to honor those parts of yourself and respect them.
Yes.
And then the easiest way to start this is just to honor and respect it in other people, since you can maybe see it more clearly in other people. And if you don't like it, as Michelle's saying, it means that there's some wounded part of ourself, a wounded, unhealed feminine part, a wounded, unhealed poor person part, a wounded, unhealed powerless person part. Does that make sense to you? So like that wounded and unhealed place within us is part of the reason why we don't like the people who are in better positions. So you can heal that, and if you're in our program, and if you have one-on-one access, reach out to Michelle for help with that. And if you don't have one-on-one access, you can probably find a way to book it on one of these pages. Okay? So I wanted to say a couple points as well about leadership and influence. So here we're trying to develop an influence that gets other people to say yes. Okay, so I started thinking about this, and part of my life is, I reach out to people, I make lots of messages and phone calls to people, and for me it's fun and I enjoy it, but for me it's like I get to play with my influence and stretch my influence farther. But as long as I keep a positive intention for everything that I do, this just builds my momentum. Okay? If you start to lose momentum, it means that either you're not trying or that you are doing something with a bad intention. Okay? But if you do powerful actions with a positive intention, this creates positive karma for you, positive energy, which makes you more powerful for the next time. Okay, so this is just a good rule of thumb. But here's what I do to make it way better. This is the psychology piece. I think about things from other people's point of view without losing myself. Okay, so how good are you at thinking of things from your prospective client's points of view without losing yourself? Because sometimes if we have no boundaries, we go to the extreme of just like losing yourself in the other person's perspective, and we lose our own perspective and we have nothing. And we're just like, that's when you become like a leaf in the wind and you are powerless, you are a follower, other people are leading everything. And if you have any codependent activities or behaviors, this is the why, right? It's because you've lost your boundaries. You've lost your sense of self, and you just saw things from other people's point of view in a way that wasn't helpful. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about you keep your own, you have a clear perspective of your own, but now you go and you see things from other people's point of view, and you want to lead them into your point of view and to your framework using their reasons. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is what leadership and influence is all about. You're leading people along the path to the desired result that you both share, right? You both share this desire. Like, you want to help them to do a transformation. They want to receive that transformation, right? Part of them wants to. So you're leading them in the same direction that they want to go, but you have to find their own reasons. They're going to be led by their reasons better than they're going to be led by your reasons. Mm-hmm. This is just part of our mind. We do what we wish. Everyone does what they wish. Other people do what they wish. You're never going to arm wrestle somebody into doing what you want. The whole point is that they're doing what they want, but you have to see the perspective and learn to communicate to them in a way that uses their own reasons. So you're seeing things from their point of view, and then you present your case, you present your offer or whatever, you present your case to them, knowing their perspective and making it really simple and logical all the way up to the result that you can give to them. I hope that makes sense. So this is why you need to start to figure out their desires. People have desires, two types of desires. Desires towards something positive and desires away from things that are negative. And this is not just a sales and marketing thing. My Buddhist teacher teaches this as in a text that we use, a Buddhist scripture. Buddha says this too, which is people have only two types of wishes. Desires towards happiness and desires away from suffering. And that's it. So you can start to think like, spiritually and from marketing and sales point of view, it's the same. People, your prospective client and you, have two types of wishes, away from pain and towards pleasure. So it's imperative that you start to see these in your client, and you want to learn their reasons so that you can, in a sense, use them in your influence. You have to use them. So in the sales call, you need to know the pain that they're moving away from, and you need to know the pleasure that they're moving to. And when you get in touch with this, it's called leverage. Okay? So you have to get leverage, and then you have to do something called breaking a pattern. So we'll talk more about that in the next video. But first of all, you have to find this leverage. You have to find their reasons to move away from their current situation, and you have to find their reasons to move towards something positive, which is like the result that you want to give them. And I want you to remember that a lot of your clients, most people in the world, have stronger movements away from pain than they do towards pleasure. Now, if somebody's an entrepreneur, they are someone probably most likely that they can move out of pleasure. They don't need as much pain motivator. They don't. And people who have addictions and that kind of stuff, I mean, who knows? I think everybody has both, but I'd say most people move away from pain more than they move towards pleasure. And so this is why you hear about people talking about, pain points. Why? It's because you need to know those, because that moves somebody, and they're going to stay stuck in their current situation without you helping them to make the right buying decision.
Okay? Your clients have not gone through the transformation that you have that allows you to understand and enjoy pleasure, right? Your clients most likely have not gone through that transformation. And so here's where it gets psychologically tricky for you as the healer and the coach. And I want you to really consider this, is that you need to gain the mastery of holding the frame of being able to see things from their perspective while also not losing yours. And this is what John was saying. You have to be able to hold your perspective about where they're headed and where they're at right now, and to see the pain that they're in and to mirror that, but without losing the fact that you are in a state of pleasure. And just because, and I get it, because we're empathetic, just because they are not in that place doesn't mean that you need to meet them at their pain. You want to hold where you're at and then invite them up to your level of empowerment, not dropping down.
Exactly. So Michelle has a really great framework for this, actually. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the key framework that I use for sales and what works for me, and we teach this in our program and our clients absolutely love it, is the connect, direct, and empower model. So what this means is that there's kind of three key parts to a sales call. The first part is where we really connect with people. So you being square in who you are and the level of empowerment and beauty and transformation that you've accessed at this point is divinely perfect. And you are getting on the call with your client, your potential client, who has not yet accessed the same level of transformation that you have, right? And so from the place of where you're at, you connect with the person on the call. You connect with them. You get to know them. You hear them. You listen to them. You empathize with them. You hear everything that's going on in their life, right? You ask questions.
From a place of confidence.
From a place
Just
of
want
confidence.
to say that real quick. Confidence, keep your confidence.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so you can have confidence and you can connect with them, but you can do it in a way that isn't going down into what they're experiencing. You hold yourself, but you show them things. You're connecting with them. You see them. You get them, right? You want them to feel understood, and you want to establish that connection, okay? So once you've established that connection, and you'll know, once you've done that, and you have cultivated that within the call, right? Then what you do is you begin to direct them. So the first part of connect, this is very feminine energy. It's that presence, cultivating that presence with them. And then you begin to direct them, right? Connect, direct, empower. So begin to direct them. And what you do is you provide a combination of, they're called reflections. This is a term from my time as a therapist, as a mental health therapist, but we provide reflections. And these reflections begin to direct people. And we can direct people in overt and subtle ways. So for example, we can direct somebody in an overt way by reflecting when somebody tried something and it didn't work, right? You can ask somebody, so what if you tried to solve this problem? Say your class is a yoga class that encourages flexibility, and you get on the phone with people that are looking to become more flexible. And you can talk to this person and you can say, so what if you tried already to become more flexible? And they might say, well, I'm trying to stretch a little bit on my own, but I'm still feeling really tight. And you can reflect and direct them by saying, so it sounds like you're trying this on your own and it's not working, right? So basically what you're showing them is you're showing them that what they're doing on their own isn't working, right? You're directing them. You're using the authority and the knowledge that you have, knowing best, to begin to direct them toward what you do know is the solution, which is your program or your product, right? So as you do this, what you're doing is you are closing doors and you're opening new doors. Because what has happened in the client's mind, they got a bunch of doors open in their mind. They got a bunch of doors open of why this isn't working, but these things could still work maybe. Right? They haven't quite figured out that all the things that they're doing are not working and will not lead them to the results. And they've got I want you to imagine somebody with just a bunch of open doors in their mind. This is how your prospective clients are coming to you, right? So the person that's seeking flexibility and really needs yoga in order to do that is thinking that maybe health and nutrition might make them more flexible. I'm just making this up as an example. Maybe they think that meditation will make them more flexible. Maybe they think that getting a massage will make them more flexible, right? Maybe they've got this whole menu of maybe they think overthinking, right? Dysfunctional patterns might make them more flexible, right? There's a lot of wrong views that they're holding about what will solve their problem. And a large portion of this direct part of the sales calls is that you're directing them away from the wrong views that they have about what will actually solve their problem, and you're bringing them closer and closer toward the right view, which is that your product and your program and your service can help them. And is the best solution.
This is so important. This is the point that I want to make, was knowing that you have to go in knowing, you have to, if you don't know this already, you need to convince yourself thoroughly through thorough, honest investigation and reflection about whether your program is better at solving your clients' problems than they know how to do already by themselves.
Yeah.
And if you become extremely clear and certain that your program helps them to solve their problems and get to their result better than they can do without you by themselves, if you really know that, your confidence on the sales calls will be supreme. And this is where influence comes from. This is, for me, how I can be influential. I'll go through periods of time where I get 0 no's. Every time I say something and ask somebody something, I get a yes. There's lots of reasons, and this is, for me, this is influence. This is the essence of influence, is getting yeses, getting energetic yeses from people when I reach out and ask them questions. But why? Why can I always get yeses from people? There's lots of reasons, right? There's lots of reasons. I don't want to simplify and say there's only one. There's lots. But essentially, it's seeing things from their point of view and presenting arguments that kind of lead them in a process. But you have to have the confidence knowing, and it needs to be true, that you know how to get the result better than they know themselves. So if I reach out to you and I want to invite you into something, I think clearly about it from your point of view, and I know that I'm making you a good offer. I'm not just doing it because I want to sell you, or because I think that you got some money for me, or that maybe I can convince you something. That's not it. If you're doing that, you're always going to be a mediocre business person. What you have to do is you have to create something that's better than other things and that they have access to already. And so then when you present it, you know clearly that you can help them better than they know how to do themselves, and that you've made an offer that's so worth it. It's so worth it and clear and logical and just makes so much sense. I don't make people offers if I don't think it's going to help them. This is how I maintain momentum. I get yeses because I don't even ask if I don't think I can help somebody. So I only ask people to join me or to say yes to me if I actually fully believe that they need or could really benefit from what I have, right? And so I'm actually thinking about things from their point of view deeply, and I'm doing it with compassion and empathy, where I don't want to lead somebody in the wrong direction. Does that make sense? I don't just try to sell anybody anything.
Yep.
I don't do that. I only sell them things that I think that they need or want, and because I've figured out that I can get them to the solutions that they want better than they can do themselves. And because, as I said before, this builds momentum. When you get yeses, it builds momentum. But why? It's because I'm doing things with a positive intention. I'm always doing things with a positive intention. And if you make all your offers with a positive intention, knowing and clearly knowing with confidence that you can help them better than they can do themselves, you're going to have the confidence and the wisdom, the clarity, and the right intention. This creates a magic combination of influence. Michelle can verify I'm a very influential person. I'm very influential. People have a hard time saying no to me. But why is that? Why is it so hard to say no to me? It's because I think about things from the point of view of who I'm talking to, and I don't even ask them a question if I don't think I can help them. I don't even ask them to give me a yes. I don't ask them to join me or to say yes to me unless I've worked out that I can help them. And if I've worked it out, then I'm energetically all in. and then I ask them to join me, and people can feel it, and so they want to say yes. And look, I know what it's like to abuse power. I know what it's like. I know that feeling, and you probably did too. If you abuse power and influence, and if you use it in the wrong way, short term, it can work out a little bit because you have momentum, right? If you have influence and power, you can use it in whatever way you want. And if you use it in the wrong direction, it's going to work for a little bit. But then you're going to run out.
Then you're going to crash.
Then you're going to crash. Then you're creating negative karma. By doing this, you're creating negative karma. You're leading people in the wrong direction. They're going to get upset that you led them in the wrong direction and the backlash. Or even if they don't, you're creating negative karma, which will catch up with you eventually. And because you're not creating positive karma anymore, you're going to lose your own momentum and power. So if you want sustained influence and power, you need to always, always, always use your powers for good. With great power comes great responsibility, and that's true. So always use your influence and power for supreme good, which means you have to think clearly about things from your client's perspective and always make sure you're helping them. I have an experience when I was living at the temple. I lived there for 5 years. There's so many things that had to be done. There's so many things that had to be done. There was like the cafe and the bookshop and the temple itself, and we had 82 acres of grounds and all like 5 different buildings, each with housekeeping jobs. Then there's the office, and then there's the kitchen. There's so many jobs that had to be done, and there's only average say 22 people that live there. So imagine 22 Buddhist practitioners who live at an 82-acre temple with 5 houses and all this other stuff to take care of, and a lot of them, a lot of people who live there are very inward. They don't even want to work that much. There's so many tasks that have to be done, and everyone has their life. And when we have responsibility in a task, we try to sign up people to join us. That's part of the thing that happens. It's like, hey, can you cover me for a shift? Hey, I have to miss this one because I'm traveling. Hey, can you cover me? Or, hey, I need to go work this day off site. Can you cover this shift for me? This is just part of the culture there, and it's fine. But there is some people get burned out is the problem. So some people, when they're new at the temple, they would get burned out because they would say yes to things without knowing their own capacity, and they would end up getting burned out. And there was a nun who I used to live there with, and she, not only was she burned out for many years of her life, she tells me, but and I think still recovering, but she would ask people to help her cover things for her without necessarily considering their point of view that much. And her perspective was, well, it's their responsibility, they're smart enough, they'll consider it, and if they don't want to do it, if they can't do it, they're just going to say no. So there's no harm in me asking. And from one point of view, she's right. There's no harm in asking. That's true. But I think that there's a higher level, which is think about it from their point of view and don't even ask them. If you don't think it's beneficial for them to say yes, why on earth would you even ask? Because some people don't know best for themselves. This is how I feel. People don't know best for themselves.
You know that you're going to be shouldering somebody with something negative by asking.
Yeah, then don't ask, because what if they say yes? Now you're harming them. Now you're harming somebody. And here's the thing, is that people sometimes trust us, right? And so let's just say that you know more than your audience, or you have some kind of level of status or respect better than your prospective clients, which might be true. And they are still kind of new and whatever, their boundaries aren't as good, their wisdom isn't as clear. If you make them an offer and they say yes to you, but you couldn't actually help them, you've kind of hurt them a little bit. And this happened at the temple, right? Because like this person was a nun. When people are new there, they're trusting. Oh, I trust all the people who are residents that live there for a while, or here's a nun, here's a monk. There's a natural trust. And if you ask them for something and it is not beneficial for them to say yes, now you're you're kind of going to be hurting their trust a little bit in the long run, right? And so much better than just what she did. She has clear boundaries, right? So she's like, oh, she assumed that other people do too. Oh, they'll just say no if they can't do it. But that's assuming people know what's best for themselves. Here, I want you to make sure that you're remembering people don't know what's best for themselves. A lot of your prospective clients don't know what's best for them, and it's up to you to guide them. Yeah. It's up to you to guide them towards something better for themselves than what they already have. And so please consider their point of view and don't ask them to do something unless you think it's beneficial to them. And I promise you that if you always do this, you're going to start to ask better questions and you're going to start to connect more deeply with someone, knowing what's beneficial for them, and you're going to be able to lead people so much better. I'm pretty sure this is one of the keys to the fact that I'm very influential, is that I deeply consider people's point of view and I don't ask them to join me in something unless I actually think it's beneficial for them. And if I'm clear that it is beneficial for them and I think that way, then I'll use my energy, I'll use all my influential energy in order to get them to take that step with me. And then if they have an open mind and they trust, they'll take the step, and then lo and behold, they will be benefited by that, most likely. And then they're going to trust me even more. But because for me, I did it with a positive mental attitude, I gained positive momentum by doing that and become even more influential. So this is how I'm able to sustain influence over a long period of time, is because I really care about the people who I'm talking to, and I've worked it out that I can help them, or I don't even ask.
Care is everything.
So that's a boundary that I've developed. I don't ask people for something unless I think I can help them.
Yep. And I would encourage too, like, this is what John's describing is a really high level of mastery, right? So I would encourage loving self-acceptance of where you're at too, right? Like, you may only be able to ask, right? And you may not have access to the other person's perspective fully. And if that's the case, there's something wrong with you, right? I want you to have loving compassion for yourself, loving compassion for others, just always having the best intention in mind for the call, praying before the call, asking to be of high service, and for the best outcome for all, right? This will help safeguard against some of these things, right? We don't have to do everything in our own strength. The divine really is with us. We don't have to figure everything out on our own. The divine really is with us and supporting us. And as long as we're asking for just the best good, right, the most beneficial outcome for every person on the call, right, the divine's going to do some of that heavy lifting for you if you don't have access to the kind of perspective what Jen's saying. So
I did say I shared a high level, and you can work, if you want to unlock, you can eventually unlock mastery of influence by going that way, and just keep an open mind to what I just shared. But Michelle's right. In the beginning, we're going to have to ask, you don't maybe know everything from your client's point of view, so you have to ask more questions. And if you ask more questions, and if you have a good intention, you're always going to be doing the right thing. Okay, so start there, and eventually you'll unlock the levels that I was talking about. Okay, so that's mainly what I wanted to share. I guess one more thing I mentioned about, so you get leverage and you break a pattern. The essence of a sale is going to be these two things. You get leverage with a person, which means you grab them by their own reasons. Leverage means that you're able to grab somebody. You grab them by their own reasons, both away from negative and towards positive. And then what do you do from here? So this is how you hold them, and you're bringing them somewhere positive. But now that you know their reasons, you want to break a pattern. And how do you break a pattern? It's by energetically grabbing them better than they've already grabbed themselves. So you grab them energetically and you break them out of their normal thing. People need to be, they're in some kind of pattern, and they're not even going to listen to you that carefully until you break it. Okay, so how can you do this? You can do this by sharing your own positivity with them and just demonstrating you're at a higher level energetically than they are. They're going to become, open to you now. There's other ways too. Some people use humor. You can use a curse word. You can just if you use a curse word or just say something that breaks the pattern. You can get energetically really strong by just saying you know what, let's go. Let's do this. You ever do that on a call? You grab them by their own reason. You know what? I know you want to do this, and I know you just want this. So fuck man, let's just do this. Let's do this. This is you taking them with leverage, and now you broke a pattern, and you're going to move them in the right direction. Okay, so these are some elements of a sale. We can share more in the other videos.
Yeah, so John just described the third step of the sales process, which is empower, right? What's happening is that these wrong views and the false limitations that people are placing on themselves for why they haven't solved this problem yet are because they're disempowered. because these thoughts, these limitations, these limiting beliefs, these loops and these patterns that people are stuck in are the reason that they're suffering and that they haven't solved their problem yet, right? So what we do is we direct them toward empowerment, toward their empowerment. It's their empowerment, but they require your help in order to break that pattern so that they can step into this next level. The next piece of this too is that working with you is a potential portal to that next level of empowerment, right? So it's like we've got the initial break of the disempowerment on the call, which is what John just described, and then we move people toward empowerment. We move people toward being empowered, and they can do that in a few different ways. But really, usually by this point in the call, if you've gotten them this far in the conversation and they've been along with you the entire time, the most aligned choice for empowerment usually is to work with you and to be in one of your packages at that point. And if you've got a really good menu of options for your offer, which you should at this point if you've been working the program and navigating this, you're going to have an offer that you love, that lights you up, that you know is of extremely high service to a person, right? So it's a natural fit. It's a natural fit to be able to show them and support them. And so what you do is you ask consent and you ask permission. And you say, so it's been amazing talking to you so far on the call, and then you provide a summary of what they said. You know, first we talked about this, and you said this about your life, and then you said you were having this different problem, and then you said you were trying these different things that weren't working, and then you said that you you're coming up against this barrier to solving the problem yourself, and then there's parts of you that feel like maybe it will never happen for you for this to get better, and those are all the things that you said, and then they'll say yes, right? Because you're connecting with them, right? And then you ask consent, because we always want to ask consent before talking about our product or a program. Number one, it's good energetic hygiene to ask consent. It's just the right thing to do, and to also, from a psychological perspective, it lowers barriers, right? We reduce those barriers of defensiveness. And so I say, I've got this product or this program that meets exactly everything that we've just discussed. It helps with everything that you just discussed. Would you like to hear about it? And then they say yes. And so when they give that yes, they're basically entering an empowerment portal, right? And so they've got this opportunity for a new level of empowerment by saying yes to you.
It also reduces your own awkwardness. So if you were to just go right into telling them about your program, you might feel awkward to do that because, again, they haven't really consented. And so it's true, you should feel a little bit awkward because they haven't consented. So you get them to say, you say, hey, there's two options. You could kind of do this on your own, or maybe I could help you. Or somehow you're going to say, hey, do you mind if I share with you about my program that I made, just for you? I think it can help you. Do you mind if I share this with you? And they say, yes. A lot of people will say, they'll be like, yeah, please tell me about this.
People will ask you.
People will really want to know. Mm-hmm. So once you get the permission, now you don't feel awkward anymore to share it, okay? So that's another reason to ask permission. Mm-hmm. One more point I want to make is just a bit about communication. Here we're talking sales influence. You need to learn, obviously this is all about communication, but here, because I know you are probably a sensitive, spiritual person, you might be intuitive, or you might be a very inward kind of person. This has been my experience of life. Sometimes I go through this thing where I think people can kind of read my mind, or I think people can kind of like read my energy, or that if I know that my intention is good and if I know I can help them, and they'll just like see it or somehow know that. What I want to say is like that's probably not true, and that when in doubt, just communicate instead. So you have to learn to take all these things that you know, and instead of just keeping them inside, you need to communicate them to people. You're going to get better at this over time. As you practice this, you're going to realize that what I'm saying is true. But right now, just make this mental note to communicate. Because probably if you're getting on any sales calls, someone they make an objection to say, no, but I don't know about this. You probably know the real reason why what they said isn't true. And you know that you can help them and you know why, but you just kind of keep it inside because you think, oh, they should probably just figure it out intuitively, just like I know it intuitively. But I want to say that instead of doing that, just communicate instead, because they don't have maybe the same level of intuitive access as you do.
Yeah.
They probably don't have it. And here's the thing is, we're not supposed to be mind readers of each other. That's not how life is going right now. You know, people aren't always going to be mind readers, especially people who are going to be your clients. Are you a perfect mind reader? You know, no. So if you can't always read people's minds, and sometimes you need things communicated to you clearly, please give your audience the benefit of the doubt that they need it communicated. I needed to hear this. I'm telling you something that I needed to hear at some point, which is just start talking. Just communicate it. Don't just hold it inside. Don't just assume that everyone's as inward as you, or that people are gonna know what you're going, through on the inside. Just communicate it anyway. Put it into words that, like, hey, I can help you because of this, or hey, are you sure, because I think it actually is like this, or hey, like, I know that you said that you can't afford this, but I think that you probably could because of this. Like, whatever please just communicate it to your clients. When in doubt, communicate.
Let your intuition run the show on certain parts of these calls. It's okay. It's okay to trust your intuition on these calls. And, there is a part of the healing and coaching community where we get spoiled. We get spoiled having people that surround us that are deeply intuitive, deeply connected, deeply integrated, wise, of a really high caliber, right? John and I very often don't have to communicate a lot of things. I mean, we definitely communicate because of our partnership and our business relationship quite a bit, but there's quite a bit that we don't have to communicate because of the level of intuitive and spiritual connection that we have, right? And so what that does is that spoils us. It spoils us into thinking that we don't need to do that in other areas or other contexts of our life. And what might seem like a typical amount of communication in one space of our life is under communication in a different space of our life. And so what might feel like over communication might actually just be adequate.
Yeah, that's well said. And I do believe that sometimes we get ourselves into trouble by saying less. And that from my point of view, I know sometimes I expect people to read my mind, and I should have just communicated. So again, I'm just telling you, because maybe you're like me, just communicate it anyway. When I used to live at the temple, again, I was like around people that didn't need my leadership, and I thought everyone was on the same page, and maybe they were, and we could just go long periods of time without any talking, and that's great. For a spiritual context, that's great. But now we're starting a business, we're in business, we're going to be getting clients. Just communicate anyway. If you're in doubt, let your intuition guide, as Michelle said, but then communicate your intuition just in case somebody else doesn't have the same intuition as you. Just in case they don't know. Maybe your intuition tells you, maybe they didn't hear it. And so now you have to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, the energy can get funky on a call. And sometimes what can happen is if we don't say something, then the call turns. And then we end up losing the sale. But if you just would have said something, right, and said, hey, you can just be transparent. Hey, I'm noticing we have this really good connection. And then something happened somewhere in the call. What happened? What happened? I value the connection that we've made so far, and I want to keep getting to know you, but we lost something here. Can we talk about that? Yeah. Right? Yeah. You can save a call by going back, right? We go back to the first part of the model, which is to connect.
Yeah, that's so true.
Go back to the connection.
That's so true. Wonderful. So this is great advice. I hope you watch this video a bunch of times so you can learn it all, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye, guys.